After a long slumber in hell, the grabber has risen from the grave to terrorize once again. But should you pick up the black phone or let it go to voicemail? Let's find out. 4 years after Finn escaped his abductor and killed the infamous grabber, the nightmare returns. Evil never truly dies, and the black phone is ringing once more. Ethan Hawke reprises his chilling role as the grabber who now seeks vengeance from beyond the grave by haunting Finn's younger sister Gwen. As the older Finn struggles to rebuild his life, Gwen, now 15, begins receiving eerie calls in her dreams and haunting visions of 3 boys being hunted at a remote winter camp called Alpine Lake. Determined to end the torment that binds them both, she convinces Finn to travel to the place in her visions during a raging snowstorm, where they uncover a horrifying connection between the grabber and their family's past. I caught the West Coast premiere of the film at LA's Beyond Fest at American Cinematheque, and you could feel the anticipation just buzzing through the crowd. Some fans even showed up dressed as the grabber to match the vibe. It's clear that this series has quickly become a beloved staple in the modern horror community. And hey, right off the bat, I'll admit it, I'm a bit of a cinematic possum when it comes to horror. I love the good stuff and I love the trash. Some of the things I enjoyed about this film may be deal breakers for others, but that's the beauty of horror, subjective chaos. The Black Phone 2 both sticks to tradition and tries to twist the formula, and in doing so, it highlights some of horror's most time-honored tropes. One big critique I'm seeing floating around is that the sequel tries to franchise what could have been a perfect one-off horror story. True, but that's also one of horror's time-honored traditions. If a killer sells tickets, they don't stay dead. Writer C. Robert Cargill was actually initially reluctant to do a sequel to this movie, after his experience with Sinister 2. But when the author of the original short story that Black Phone was based on, Joe Hill, pitched him the idea of Finn getting a call from the grabber, straight from hell, he couldn't resist pursuing that thread. And I'm here for it. In our modern wave of horror, we just don't have a large batch of new boogeymen. In the 70s and 80s, we were spoiled with your Michaels, Freddys, Jasons, and Leatherfaces. But this generation needs their own iconic horror characters. Sure, Art the Clown is certainly on his way, but most modern slashers are legacy sequels. So with that in mind, I welcome the return of the grabber with open arms. The grabber's screen time is limited, but his presence looms large. When he appears, it's impactful, and that's partially thanks to his instantly iconic mask, designed by horror legend Tom Savini. Originally, the grabber was going to be in clown makeup, since the character was inspired by real serial killer John Wayne Gacy. But Joe Hill requested that they switch it up, to avoid comparisons to the work of his father, Stephen King. He instead suggested a look based on 1930s magic acts, which often incorporated a devil mask. Tom Savini sketched it out on a cocktail napkin, and a new horror legend was born. Of course, the mask is only half the equation, and is only terrifying as the man beneath it.
Hey everybody, gather around. I'm gonna tell you about the grabber.
And Ethan Hawke once again delivers pure menace. Every word drips with malevolence, his performance radiating the energy of a soul stripped down to evil itself. He's clearly relishing his second turn at playing a villain, and commits 100% to playing this deliciously evil character. Now, having said that, there's the elephant in the room, the Freddy Krueger of it all. I'm not the first, nor the last, to see parallels to this character in the way that they approach the grabber's resurrection. And to that I say, yeah, but is that enough to derail the movie? Hell no. Cannibalism is another horror tradition at play here. Not so much in the literal sense, but horror is folklore, and there will always be some kind of derivative. For example, I love Friday the 13th, but the filmmakers have openly admitted that it began its life as a shot at cashing in on the Halloween franchise, even down to some of the stylistic choices. So yeah, horror can tend to eat its own tail, but it's what it does with it that's important. And I think the Black Phone 2 uses its familiar villain resurrection in a way that they can spin in their own direction if they choose to move forward with a third. So while yes, it contains elements of that, it's honestly more of a ghost story than a nightmare. In fact, if you wanted to, you could even compare it to films like Friday the 13th for the lakeside camp setting, or The Thing for its snowy, isolated horror. You can even find deeper cuts like Curtains and The Dead Zone sprinkled throughout. The returning cast is stellar. Time has only improved their acting chops. Mason Thames showcases his ability to subtly portray the post-traumatic stress that follows the events of the first film. We find him dealing with the fallout through anger, violence, and a lot of weed. He hides his fear behind fights, channeling some of his dead friend Robin's antics. But deep down, he's a caring brother, dedicating himself to the protection of his sister Gwen, as she finds herself a target of the grabber. He even has some fantastic comedic beats, as Finn finds himself becoming a bit of a chaperone when Robin's younger brother Ernesto takes a liking to Gwen. And while yes, he is the heart of the film, this movie belongs to Gwen. Madeline McGraw brings us a more mature Gwen, working through the difficult terrain of figuring out how her psychic abilities work. She brings a deep range of believable trauma, fear, and at times a deep sadness, as she connects the dots between the grabber and her dead mother. But through it all, she manages to drop some profane quips that would make a pirate blush. Her blend of vulnerability and razor-sharp wit completely owns this movie, and the supporting performances also land. Miguel Mora returns as Ernesto, the younger brother of Finn's late friend Robin, adding both levity and warmth. Jeremy Davies also returns as the now sober, more loving version of the father from the first film, offering a quiet but meaningful redemption arc. Director Scott Derrickson returns with confidence and style, expanding the world while honoring the tone that made the first film work. He pushes boundaries, blending supernatural horror with psychological trauma. He plays with the lore, expanding and shifting established plot points in interesting and bold ways. And man, does he know how to conduct a visual style. The shift from a dingy basement to the great white outdoors opens the film up to a whole new visual palette. The shots of the lonely phone booth, tucked between the vast mountains of Colorado, never fail to look stunning. Also, hell yeah for winter horror. I can never get enough of the blood and snow combo. The quiet moments are often lit by vintage heating coils, giving a soft humming glow to the tender moments, and also expanded in a big way is the use of old film grain to convey the shift between reality and nightmare. The use of this style to indicate that shift is such a cool visual choice, especially given the winter settings. It plays like a corrupted version of the old Christmas memories scene in Christmas Vacation, swapping holiday cheer for dismembered campers. And yeah, Derrickson ups the ante on the gore, giving us some glimpses into the child murders that the first film pulled its punches on. There's a confidence in his decision, taking an unflinching look at the grim underbelly of the story this time. The first movie was a missing child photo on a milk carton. The writers growing up in the 70s, tapping into the fear that one day they would be listed on one. The Black Phone 2 is an after-school special, tapping into morality and the power of facing your fears. It dabbles a bit cheesy sometimes, sure, and can even come off a touch preachy to some, but that's how each character deals with their trauma, some using their faith to guide their actions. I mean, the film does, after all, take place at a religious youth camp. And yeah, the film can tend to drag a bit at times, but it always tends to reward your patience. Overall, this is a welcome return to form for the entire cast and crew, and it earns its keep as a worthy successor to the breakout hit that was The Black Phone. It's a chilling, bold follow-up that expands the mythology without losing its soul. It's creepy, emotional, and surprisingly heartfelt. A worthy return for both cast and crew. Final verdict on this one is 7 out of 10. And if the grabber decides to call for a third time, I'll keep answering.
Easy.
Vengeance is mine.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo remains an independent company, and we appreciate all of your support.